Welcome back to the Pitwell Pod, your pit stop for everything Formula One. This weekend, Zandvoort is the place to be because it's time for the Dutch Grand Prix. The sea of orange is flooding the grandstands, the atmosphere is electric, and all eyes are on who will conquer the dunes this year. Can Max Verstappen take another home victory, or will someone else rise to the challenge and steal the crown? We've got all the stories from the paddock, the qualifying drama, the strategy battles, and of course the race that never fails to deliver fireworks. So grab your headphones, buckle up, and let's dive straight into the Zandvoort spectacle. Practice 1. Opening practice at Zandvoort is in the books, and it's Lando Norris who's laid down the early marker at the Dutch Grand Prix. The McLaren man topped the timesheets with a 1:10.278, edging out his teammate Oscar Piastri by just under 3 tenths. Aston Martin's Lance Stroll rounded out the top three with a strong late effort ahead of Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon. It was a busy first session back after the summer break. The drivers were greeted by dry but windy conditions, though heavy rain later in the weekend could make this mileage extra valuable. Early on, we saw drama. Lewis Hamilton spun with a full 360, reporting flat spots. Yuki Tsunoda also went off, and young Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli ended up in the gravel at turn 9, bringing out the red flag. When running resumed, Max Verstappen briefly went quickest in front of his home crowd, but Norris put McLaren back on top, setting a time that no one could beat. Verstappen eventually slipped to sixth, and to make matters worse, he ended the session in the gravel after a practice start at turn 1. Hardly the restart for summer he'd have wanted in front of the Orange Army. Elsewhere, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, Gabriel Bortoleto and Pierre Gasly completed the top 10, while both Ferraris had a low-key outing, Leclerc in 14th, Hamilton in 15th, with Leclerc admitting the team were miles off at the back. Antonelli was unable to return after his early off, finishing the session in 20th. So after FP1, it's advantage McLaren with Norris and Piastri locking out the top two. The big question now, can they carry that piece into qualifying on Saturday, or was this just a Friday headline? We'll find out as the weekend unfolds. Practice 2. Friday running at Zandvoort is complete, and once again it's Lando Norris setting pace. After topping FP1 earlier in the day, the McLaren driver repeated the feat in free practice 2, clocking a 1:09.890 on soft tires to secure a clean sweep of Friday's session at the Dutch Grand Prix. Behind him, Fernando Alonso impressed for Aston Martin, just 0.08 of a second adrift, while Norris teammate Oscar Piastri slid into third, making it another strong showing for McLaren. George Russell took fourth for Mercedes, with home favorite Max Verstappen rounding out the top 5, 6 tenths of Norris' benchmark. It wasn't a smooth session, though, with two red flags disrupting the running. The first came earlier on after Lance Stroll suffered a heavy crash at the bank turn 3. Thankfully, he was unharmed, but his Aston Martin was left badly damaged. Later, Alex Albon brought out the second stoppage when he went off at turn 1, beaching his Williams in the gravel after hitting the barrier. Elsewhere, Lewis Hamilton endured another spin, his second of the day, while Isaac Hadjar managed only a single outlet before a technical failure forced him to stop. As the track improved under sunshine, lap time stumbled, but it was Norris who had the final word. His time left him narrowly ahead of Alonso and Piastri, though he faces a steward's investigation for a minor pit lane clash with Russell. No, that was wrong. It was Oscar Piastri who had a minor pit lane clash with Russell. Further down the order, Tsunoda, Leclerc, Colapinto, and Hulkenberg completed the top 10. Notable, Ferrari once again looked off the pace, with Leclerc only in P8, while Antonelli recovered from his FP1 crash to go 12th. So after two disrupted sessions, Norris is clearly the man to beat at Zandvoort, heading into Saturday's running. The question now is whether McLaren can turn this pace into pole or if Verstappen and Red Bull are keeping something in reserve for qualifying in front of the Orange Army. Practice 3. Final practice at Zandvoort is complete, and it's Lando Norris who continues to dominate the weekend. The McLaren driver made it a clean sweep of all three practice sessions, posting a blistering 1:8.972, more than 2 tenths clear of teammate Oscar Piastri. The McLaren duo were in a league of their own ahead of qualifying, stamping their authority on the Dutch Grand Prix weekend so far. Behind them, George Russell put Mercedes into third, with Carlos Sainz impressing in the Williams to take fourth, just ahead of home favourite Max Verstappen in fifth. It was a tricky start to FP3 after heavy overnight rain left the circuit damp, meaning drivers were slow to venture out. Isaac Hadjar was the first to roll, but quickly reported the track was still very green. Once conditions improved, Lance Stroll back on track after his heavy FP2 crash, and overnight chassis change was among the first to push on soft before Norris and Piastri began trading times at the front. As the session developed, qualifying simulations became the focus, and Norris turned up the heat. His 1:8.972 was not only quickest of the session, but comfortably faster than anything he managed on Friday. Piastri again pushed hard, especially in the opening sector, but couldn't match his teammate over a full lap. Elsewhere, Verstappen struggled to keep pace with the McLarens, his best efforts on softs leaving him nearly a second off the top. Russell also had a close call late on, almost colliding with Alonso at high speed as both heading towards the pit entry, a moment that's now under investigation. Behind the top five, Leclerc, Albon, Stroll, Hadjar, and Alonso round out top 10, while Hamilton's Ferrari could only manage 14th. Further down, Kimi Antonelli's weekend continued as he was blocked on his final lap, leaving him outside the top 15. So as the teams now turn their attention to qualifying, the picture is clear. McLaren have to set the standards. With Norris in previous form, the question is whether Verstappen can find another gear in front of his home crowd, or if Zandvoort is set to turn papaya orange this weekend. Qualifying. It's qualifying day here at Zandvoort, and what a thriller we had. After three practice sessions dominated by Lando Norris, it was Oscar Piastri who stole the spotlight when it mattered most. Taking pole position for the Dutch Grand Prix with a storming 1:8.662, Norris pushed him all the way but fell just short, 12 tenths seconds short, so he settling for P2 as McLaren locked out the front row in style. Max Verstappen gave the Orange Army something to cheer about, putting his Red Bull into third place, just over 2 tenths back. The star of the session, though, might just be Isaac Hadjar. The Racing Bull rookie delivered a stunning lap to secure P4, his career best qualifying result, ahead of George Russell in fifth and the Ferrari duo of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in sixth and seventh. Liam Lawson also impressed, making it a double top 10 for Racing Bulls in eighth, with Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso rounding out the top 10. It wasn't smooth sailing for everyone. Lance Stroll's weekend of woes continued, crashing early in Q1 and finishing at the back of the grid. Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli just missed the Q3 cut in 11th, while Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon also fell short of the shootout. As for the front, the McLaren showdown came down to the wire. Piastri struck first with a lap that put him on provisional pole, and while Norris looked set to snatch it back, neither improved on their final runs, meaning the Aussie held firm to claim his ninth, pole of the season, and as Piastri himself put it afterwards, that was the definition of peaking at the right time. Super happy to come away with the result. So heading into Sunday, it's a McLaren front row lockout, Verstappen looming just behind, and a grid full of surprises. One thing's for sure, the Dutch Grand Prix is set up perfectly for fireworks. The race. The Dutch Grand Prix delivered all the drama you could hope for, and then some. Oscar Piastri has taken a commanding victory, extending his championship lead, while his McLaren teammate Lando Norris faced heartbreak with a late race retirement. From pole, Piastri had a strong start, holding the lead while Norris and Max Verstappen battled behind him. Norris managed to retake second early on, setting up a McLaren 1-2, but the race quickly turned chaotic. Lewis Hamilton crashed on lap 23, triggering their first safety car, and Charles Leclerc collided with Kimi Antonelli, bringing out the seconds. McLaren double-stacked their drivers, and while Piastri kept his lead, Norris was slightly delayed but still in P2. As the race entered the final stages, tragedy struck for Norris. Smoke from his car forced him to retire with just a few laps remaining, handing Piastri a clear path to victory. Verstappen finished second, while Racing Bull rookie Isaac Hadjar scored a sensational first podium, finishing third. George Russell took fourth, and Alex Albon completed the top five after an impressive climb from P15 on the grid. Other highlights include Ollie Bearman moving up from the pit lane to sixth, Stroll and Alonso securing points for Aston Martin, and Haas scoring points thanks to Esteban Ocon and Ollie Bearman. Unfortunately, Ferrari had a rough day. Leclerc and Hamilton both retired, and penalties for Antonelli didn't help. Antonelli got a 10-second penalty for the collision with Leclerc, and then a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. After 72 laps of twists, turns, and multiple safety cars, Piastri crossed the line 1.271 seconds ahead of Verstappen. This victory marks his seventh or ninth, is it ninth of the season and extends his championship lead to 34 points over Norris. Meanwhile, the Dutch Grand Prix saw debut podium glory for Hadjar and a dramatic shake-up in the constructors and drivers' standings. It was a race that had everything: high-speed battles, strategy calls, crashes, safety cars, and heartbreak, especially for Norris, but Oscar Piastri proved why he's leading the championship with a master class drive at Zandvoort. The 25 Drivers' Championship Top 5 after Zandvoort: 1. Oscar Piastri with 309 points, Lando Norris with 275 points, Max Verstappen with 205 points, George Russell with 184 points, and Charles Leclerc with 151 points. The top 5 of the Constructors' Championship after Zandvoort: McLaren with 584 points, Ferrari with 260 points, Mercedes with 248 points, Red Bull Racing with 214 points, and Williams with 80 points. And that wraps up an unforgettable weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix, from McLaren's dominance in practice to the nail-biting qualifying battle, and finally Oscar Piastri's stunning victory after a dramatic late race twist for Lando Norris. Zandvoort truly delivered everything F1 fans love: speed, strategy, and suspense. Congratulations also to Isaac Hadjar on his first ever podium in F1, and to all the drivers who battled through a weekend of challenges and safety cars. The championship picture is starting to take shape, with Piastri extending his lead and McLaren holding firm at the top of the constructors' standings. We'll be back next week to break down the next race, all the drama, and every on-track moment, so make sure you're tuned in. Until then, keep your engines running and your racing hearts pumping. Thanks for listening, and from all of us here at the podcast, see you at the next Grand Prix in Monza.